So for a long time, Baghdad was one of the most dangerous places on earth to visit, and even now there's very few tourists in the capital. However, I want to show you how I visited Iraq, how I stayed in Baghdad for a month, and I had the time of my life. Stay curious, I tell them. To prepare you on your journey to Baghdad, I want to provide you with all the necessary tools, all the do's and don'ts, and the main highlights of my own trip so you too can maximize your time on the ground and do it safely. But before we get started, I would really appreciate if you can subscribe to the channel to get more content like this, and make sure to also check out the vlog that really inspired this behind the scenes right here and in the end cards at the end of the video. So let's get started with the logistics of the trip. First, I want to talk about the visa. When I arrived in Baghdad, I went in with my American passport, and I thought, you know what, you're going to need a visa in advance, and some places require that, and it's something you may want to consider. But for me, I also read that you can get one on arrival, and it worked perfectly. I arrived, provided them my passport, where I'm going to be staying, what I'm going to be doing. They were able to stamp it and provide me a visa right there and then, probably within about half an hour to an hour, and it cost around $80. Definitely, I would say take a look at your embassy requirements before you go to make 100% sure that you don't require a visa in advance. In terms of the flight, I booked my ticket through Jordan and then from Amman, the capital of Jordan, to Baghdad. But you can travel into Iraq from a variety of different places: Dubai, Doha, Jordan, Turkey, also I believe Cairo in Egypt, and parts of Europe as well. So I would definitely consider thinking about how you want to get into Baghdad. But what's really, really important is that you want to arrive during the day, not at night, so that you can be able to find a taxi and get you to your destination, and not trying to navigate figuring out Baghdad at night, which could potentially be dangerous or at least disorienting for someone who hasn't been there before. In terms of the weather in Baghdad, I went there in the summer. It was hotter than you can imagine, about 120, 110, 120 degrees, around 50 Celsius. So it's not that important to take a look at the temperature, because you'll know in summer it's super hot and in the winter it could get a little bit chilly. But I would say that the best times to go to Baghdad would be around something like October to somewhere around May. In terms of money, I would definitely recommend bringing US dollars or like one of the major foreign currencies with you so that you can exchange it, because cash is king in Baghdad. You can obviously still go to restaurants and pay with a credit card, but it's not always the case. So just carry cash with you, especially when you arrive, so you can pay for the visa and just getting around, especially with taxis, tuk-tuks, and so forth, which we'll talk about. In terms of transportation, we used a lot of taxis, even those little scooter tuk-tuks around. I'm not sure if they're going to phase them out from Baghdad, but they were very useful and they're quite cheap. But the taxis were safe. The people were nice, honorable. When they agree on a price in the beginning, they go with it all the way to the end. So definitely those were two great modes of transportation. There are other local transportation, but I wouldn't really risk it. You can also figure if you can have a guide with a car that can take you to different places, which is something you should definitely consider. I had my own family there, so they kind of took me everywhere I wanted to go. And because I speak the local dialect, I was able to get around myself. But all that said, if you can get a guide, that would really be helpful, because they can also organize for you a car and how to get around and so forth, so you don't have to deal with taxis. In terms of infrastructure, that was definitely one of the bigger issues that I faced. There are electricity cuts literally 10 to 15 times a day, which can get really, really frustrating and annoying, because it can cut you when you're in the elevator. So that's always taking the staircase everywhere I go. You could be on calls and suddenly internet drops, and it kind of quickly switches between the central power of the state and the local generators, and the generators are everywhere. A real nuisance, but they really carry the day in terms of providing constant electricity in Baghdad. But in terms of water, there's also water cuts typically at night. So there are definitely inconveniences that you slowly start to acclimate to. And the only times you can avoid that is if you're staying in a really nice hotel or staying in a really nice accommodation like a compound where they have constant water and constant electricity. And finally, the security. Look, in Baghdad, when I was there, I was really, really fortunate. First of all, it was in the summer, so I think everything was just kind of more chill. There wasn't too much craziness going on, even though it was right in the middle of Muharram, which is one of the most important religious holidays in Iraq. But for some reason, things were just very calm. I felt extremely safe there. There wasn't crime. There wasn't like petty crime. It just felt very, very safe to be in Baghdad at the time. I would highly recommend that you go to the State Department website to make sure that the rating of traveling there is not off the charts, and that you monitor the news to see if there's nothing crazy going on, and be prepared to cancel, change your ticket, or leave at a moment's notice, because things can get pretty hairy. So now for my favorite, 2 facts and a fiction. Number 1, Iraq has the oldest system of writing in the world. Number 2, masgoof, a very popular dish in Iraq, has a sheep's head put against the fire and people eat the brains. And number 3, Aladdin, Sindbad, and Alibaba are all characters in Iraqi folklore. So wait till the end to find out which one of those is the fiction. Now I want to give you 5 don'ts in Iraq so that you are on your A game when you go there. Number 1, do not sit cross-legged or show your shoe to anybody's face. When you do that, you can get in big trouble. I kind of crossed my legs when I was going through checkpoints, and when somebody saw me doing that, they gave me a lot of grief, so do not do that. Number 2, when given food, make sure you take it and eat it. It is seen as really disrespectful. Somebody offers you food and you say, no, no, no. You do want to take it so you can show courtesy and hospitality to them. Number 3, in terms of religion, don't talk about it, especially not sectarian religion, because it really is contentious in Iraq. If somebody brings it up and speaks about it, listen, hear, observe, but don't get too involved and don't say really crazy contentious things. Now, in Iraq, which is wild, is when you talk to somebody, they usually have small talk in the beginning of anything. Say those niceties, wait to hear them back, like how are you doing? How's everything going? How's your family? How's your health? And when you kind of sign off, those niceties can take like an extra 10, 20, 30 seconds at the end when you want to say goodbye. It's hilarious, but it's very, very Iraqi. So don't rush those conversations. And finally, in terms of payment, be prepared that Iraqis will pay for all your meals. They do not accept, especially if you're a guest, for you to pay. It is something that is seen as insulting if you pay for it and you're a visitor in Iraq. So I want to talk about the main highlights of my trip. And I have to say, I was there for several weeks, so I have a lot of highlights to cover. So let's kind of get through at least the top ones and then check out the vlog for the rest of the incredible highlights and experiences I had in Baghdad. So one of my main highlights was checking out Abu Nawas, which is an area in Baghdad on the Tigris River. And there they have a beautiful park where a lot of families were kind of chilling and relaxing, especially at night when it's over 100 degrees. But it just felt like so hopeful, so nice that people are going out and fraternizing and being together. People really want to live. And it really was a testament to the willpower of the people. Another highlight I had was running through Baghdad. I decided kind of like close to the end of my trip to do a run as I do in almost every new place I go to. Running across the Tigris? And I ran for like 7-8 miles throughout the city, stopping in different places along the way. And it was so nice. Odd for Iraqis to see somebody running at 100-degree weather at night, but still super, super cool and a good way of seeing the city and safely, oddly enough, even though there's not a lot of sidewalks. So I have to say that the moment that really, really stood out for me was when I saw something that really kind of hit home. When I first went to Iraq in 2011, I was helping TEDx speakers in Baghdad really improve their speeches and really kind of engage audiences, right? One of the people I was training and helping with the speech was a man named Manal al-Haboubi, who was an Iraqi architect and eventually became the mayor of Baghdad for a short period of time. He designed a building that had won a competition for the parliament in Baghdad of Iraq. It was really shaped in the shape of infinity, an absolutely beautiful building. And even though it was announced and launched in 2010, 2011, it was never built. The land just stood there derelict for so many years. And when I went to Iraq, I saw a building being erected and I asked my cousin, like, what is this building? And he said, that is the building of Manal al-Haboubi, the one that we had seen, the one we had spoken about, the one that we had touted in that incredible speech that he did in TEDx back so many years ago. And there it was being built. And it gave me such a resurgence of hope just when I was feeling so down about all the things I was seeing in Baghdad in terms of another side of it, the war, the bullet-ridden buildings, again, the power cuts, the water cuts, just the difficulties that the people see every day. And seeing that building come to life was just so beautiful and so magical. And I really, really can't wait to go back to Baghdad and see it in my own 2 eyes. All right, so now let's give you the answers to the 2 facts and a fiction. Number 1, yes, cuneiform, which comes from ancient Mesopotamia, is the oldest system of writing in the world. Number 2, Aladdin, Sindbad, and Alibaba are all part of 1001 Nights, a series of folktales that were given in Iraq that came from Iraq, from the country itself. But the fiction is in fact masgoof, is a type of fish, a river fish that comes from Baghdad and from other parts of the country, and it's cooked where they kind of split it open and they put it on a fire. Absolutely delicious. What I was telling you about the sheep's head is called pacha, and they do eat the brains, and that, to me, wasn't my favorite dish I ate.
Woo! That's no joke. One and done. I don't think I'll be ordering this again.
Even though the dish and the foods in Iraq are so incredible, That alone is worth visiting the country and seeing it for yourself and tasting the food of the country itself. Well, I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes of Baghdad and it was helpful for you to plan your own journey. If you have any comments, please post them below, or any suggestions or any questions. I would love to answer them and create this community engagement between us. Also, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to this channel so you can get more content like you experienced today. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Stay curious, and I look forward to seeing you on my next journey.